I'm back in Emerald Kaizo. But wait, this time I'm doing something completely different. Look, I know that I've trashed on this game for how stupid it is to nuzlocke, and I admit, after failing over and over, this game was never supposed to be nuzlocked in the first place. This got me thinking, well, with this in mind, how hard is this game actually to play normally? How easily can I beat this game without overleveling, the way it was intended to be played? And most importantly, is it possible to cheese your way through this game? That is what I want to know. I know that this game purposely makes it so many easy cop-out strategies like setup, RNG abuse and such are no longer available. But I do have some ideas on how to exploit some loopholes to easily beat the AI without overleveling. You too can use this video to help you with your own playthrough, or even if you're nuzlocking, this might help you regardless. But before I start this run, I'll recap the rules quickly, as this is a different kind of playthrough. The only rules are that set mode must be on, no cheats are allowed, you cannot overlevel the next gym leader, this is a big one. If you're at the cusp of overleveling and are at a boss fight, it's acceptable to save before and reset to prevent accidental overleveling, but if I accidentally overlevel in any way, I've got to temporarily box that Pokemon. Though in this playthrough, I never overleveled anyway, luckily. Apart from those few things, there are no other rules. I've got to use my own creativity to come up with whatever super bongo cheese strategies I can find. Honestly, I feel like I misjudged this game a little bit, as this was how the game was meant to be played all along. But with all that explained, it's time to start the run. Let's go! So in the interest of time, I'll skim over many of the early game battles, otherwise this guide will literally be like 3 hours long, and that won't be necessary. For the early game, I'll focus mostly just on the gym leaders, as the other boss battles aren't that much of a threat, especially when using the level cap. The level caps are only for the gym leaders after all. What I will say is that Mudkip is probably the best starter, simply due to how Swampert has late game access to Swift Swim, which will be really good in the seafloor cavern in the final gym. That's pretty much it. Apart from that, your starter won't make that much of a difference, to be honest. So I get a good Mudkip, then start the game. I start off by catching a few Pokemon which will be very useful, like Sunkern or Growlithe. These will be vital. Growlithe needs to have Intimidate, and be sure to catch multiple, just to narrow down the one with the best nature and IVs, as this is just a very crucial thing in general. You need to make sure that your Pokemon is as good as it can be, otherwise many of these strategies just won't work. Hell, later on in a run, I would catch and or breed a Pokemon over 20 times simply to narrow down the best one. Now the good thing is that you can get the Sunstone straight away. It turned out that you can also get the Firestone and the Moonstone at the very start of the game, but I never actually realised this, which was annoying. I could have gone early game access to Nidoking or Arcanine, which would have made the early game a lot easier, but I still managed to get by without that. I do recommend you get those stones though. So the first real hurdle will be the first gym leader. The issue is that the level cap will be set to 15, so no Marshtomp and no Nidorino. That kinda sucks, but there are some Pokemon that can give you a very good advantage against Roxanne. Though I will say that Roxanne is probably one of the harder gym leaders to completely cheese, simply due to the amount of RNG and status in this battle and the lack of available options that you have. This will not be easy, and you will definitely need a plan for this. So after beating Trainer Red and grinding, I get a team and prepare for Roxanne, then I go to face her. This is a team that I settled on using. I feel like it could have been optimised a little bit more, but against Roxanne it's just not easy to cheese. A good grind type is pretty much mandatory to wall certain threats in her team, such as a Nose Pass. Phanpy is probably one of the best ground types you can get at this point, and mine has optimised stats. Then the two most important Pokemon definitely for this gym are Sunflora and Roselia, as they're basically fully evolved and have superior stats for this part of the game, along with the really useful moves. Also make sure that Sunflora evolves at the right time so it can learn Razor Leaf. Apart from that, the other two Pokemon are specifically up to you. I did end up using Poliwag, and I would recommend that, as it is very fast and has got Bubble Beam, which is a very strong water move, whereas Mudkip only has Water Gun. So for this gym battle, I changed my strategy a little bit. Do note that speed tiers and specific IVs will make all the difference, and your results might vary from mine even if you've got the same team, simply because of that. So against a lead nose pass, I choose to lead off with Poliwag as my water replacement, as it can outspeed everything on this team. Use Cherry Berry to avoid paralysis, then simply destroy it with 2 bubble beams. So far so good. The next Pokemon, Lileep though, is a deceptive threat and is really hard to handle, as it's got almost no counters due to its move pool. Hell, not even Makuhita was able to take it down, and my Nidoran was barely able to stop it. But with Lileep down, that's one of their biggest threats taken care of. Now, the next Lunatone is a tricky mon to handle, but there are a few things you can do. I was able to put it to sleep with Hypnosis, but it's safer to just outspeed an attack with Bubble Beam. The outcome will usually be the same. Regardless, Sunflora will have an easy time beating it. Also, make sure that your Sunflora reaches level 16 during the battle, just so it can learn Synthesis. Anorus is an offensive powerhouse with really high attack for this part of the game. You'll most likely have no choice but to sacrifice a mon to it. But I brought Rhyhorn specifically to counter this one-on-one. With good IVs you can usually beat it. Relicanth is no issue at all, as Roselia easily counters it with Mega Drain, leaving just a final Shuckle. Now, this is where RNG really comes into play, as Shuckle abuses Curse Rollout. It can easily sweep and there's no surefire way to stop it, even though I've got 3 Pokemon against this. I made sure to paralyze it so I can stall and set up with Growth with my Sunflora to attack the Shuckle on its weaker special defensive side, securing me the win, with 2 of my best Pokemon left in my party. I won't lie, the strategy could have been smoother, but it's just the start of the game. As you progress in a run, it will get much easier, as there will be far more strategies available to the player. So from here on, I'll just skip straight to the next gym, as the May battle is optional and the Aqua Grunts aren't too much of an issue. Now, Brawley, despite having a way stronger team than Roxanne, you'll be glad to know is definitely much easier to cheese, and here I came up with a pretty disgusting strategy. Put a pin, as this method will be flat out broken later on. A few notable Pokemon for Brawley. Growlithe and Sunflora are necessary for this strategy. I mentioned earlier that if you're able to get an Arcanine and Nidoking, this fight will be way easier. But I didn't even need that. The rest of the team is mostly up to you. Chimecho is very useful to add, and Marshtomp is always nice to have because of Mudshot. So I battle Brawley, and what I do is I lead off with Growlithe. This is where Intimidate is vital, as despite the difficulty there is an exploit. The AI is not very smart, so you can exploit some loopholes here. This is one of the rare instances where you can actually abuse setup moves in this game. Intimidate with Growlithe, switch out to Roselia to paralyze the lead while healing itself up with Synthesis. Then go back to Growlithe to Intimidate it again. You can do this as many times as you need to do, but when Hitmontop is weak enough from being intimidated enough, you simply switch out to Sunflora, then you can set up Growth while making sure that your HP is high because you've got Synthesis. After you've set up and your HP is really high, also keep in mind that Hitmontop will be paralysed, you can just utterly flex on Brawley's team, one-shotting the majority of his team with Razor Leaf. Oh baby! You can even use Chesto Berry to counter Poliwrath using Hypnosis, but I didn't even need that. Sunflora was able to one-shot 4 of Brawley's 6 Pokemon, and I've only just got 1 casualty, which is really good. Unfortunately, Meditite was able to outspeed it and KO it, but after I take out Meditite, it's 5 of my Pokemon against his final Hariyama. Though it's strong, you'll simply just gang up on it and win. Bro, coming up with this setup method was actually really fun. It goes to show that with enough meme power, there are ways to troll this game. It feels good, man. Honestly, May was hard only because I was really anxious about accidentally overleveling, so I wasn't prepared for this fight, so I lost a few times, but realistically, most people on a normal playthrough won't have any problems here. Instead, I'll just skip to my preparations for the 3rd gym leader, and though this guy has a crazy strong team with amazing coverage, there are a few tricks you can do against him. Due to how he spams paralysis, this will be a little bit RNG dependent, more so than Brawley. Wattson is tricky to deal with, as he's got many counters for ground types, so you can't just abuse them. So you need to know when to use your ground types properly. But once again, your grass types will be key to sweeping, as he's got a much harder time of countering them. Hariyama and Spinda are also solid backups in their own right. With these battles, it usually takes me a few failures before I realise the best course of action for the battle. I have to do a few practice runs, if you can call that. After a few attempts and failing, you'll know what order to make your plays in to easily cheese the battle. So this isn't the attempt where I won. The lead Jolteon is very pesky as it's got grass coverage, so Roselia is the only Pokemon that can reliably take hits from it. You need to waste 2 turns to paralyze the Jolteon, as it's such a threat and it's so fast, but once you do, you can just stall it out with Magical Leaf and Synthesis. Had I used a Cherry Berry, I would have had 1 extra turn, which would have made this much more easy to do. But you need to take down the Jolteon, ideally with Roselia being at high HP, which is doable with Synthesis spam and enough patience. Keep in mind that Roselia was under the level cap, that might have mattered. Mega Drain will also allow you to KO while healing up. The main point of doing this is so you'll have enough HP to tank the Ice Beam from the Lantern, which will come in next, while paralysing it, so your follow-up can handle it. Sunflora having Giga Drain is so crucial here. Now Ampharos is a threat that has very little counters, so I need my backup Pokemon just to get it out of the way. The paralysis I got was pretty lucky, but it will still be possible to stop Ampharos with Donphan regardless. Then Sunflora is able to easily counter the Raichu and, despite being hit by a critical hit, is able to beat it with Giga Drain. Nice. Sack here, then Marshtomp can safely beat the Electabuzz one-on-one, as it doesn't have any grass coverage. As you've got the numbers advantage, you can easily just do a 1-for-1 trade, so you can just gang up on the final Manectric, which is strong, but my full HP Donphan can destroy it. Your grass types won't be too helpful against that because it's got Flamethrower. But while this battle wasn't too hard, you do have to sack more often, and I only sustained a few casualties in this battle. So after here, there are a lot more battles to go, but the main one to worry about is the Maxie boss battle. This is a huge step up from the last ones. This is probably the biggest difficulty spike in the game so far, so you'll need to have some really big brain strats for him. Now this is definitely the hardest boss yet, and I went all out to assemble a completely new team, specifically to counter each of his mons, but crazily enough, even then the battle is still very RNG reliant, due to how just insanely overpowered his team is for this part of the game. But after a lot of trial and error, I found a somewhat doable method to counter Maxie's team, so make my way to Mount Chimney and train a whole lot. So what I'll do is I'll explain the reasoning behind each of my Pokemon as I use them in the battle so you can understand. The lead Registeel is a pain, as it can randomly use Explosion sometimes. There's not too much you can do about that, but as long as Donphan can take it out, it can be used as fodder later on. Houndoom is monstrously strong, but Hariyama with Thick Fat is probably the only counter so far for this, and even then a critical hit can probably wreck you. And while Sunflora is not that great a counter for Claydol, it's good enough to whittle it down so Spinda can reliably finish it off. You have no choice but to rely on trade-offs with Maxie. Alakazam is a pain, but unfortunately Solrock could counter it, but it came just short of one-shotting it. IVs definitely matter here. Alternatively, I'll say that Grumpig with Signal Beam is most likely able to wall Alakazam and is just a better counter, but honestly, as I've got Fake Out users, this doesn't even matter that much. The main threat is Crobat, and due to its coverage options like Giga Drain, there isn't that much you can do to stop it. My best answer was to use Gyarados, as with Intimidate both of its defenses will be high, and despite getting bad RNG I still managed to take it down. This leaves the final Dusclops for you to whittle down, and oh man, this is a pain due to its massive stat buffs. It's legendary tier in this game. This will be very RNG dependent, but my solution was to just spam Shadow Ball until I got that 20% defense drop, then I just win after that. Though that was dicey, but eventually I found a way to win with half of my team still standing. Jeez. And the battles will only get more intense from here on. The next gym leader, however, is by far the hardest yet and she'll require a lot of strategy. Though I will say that once you do have a very good plan, she's actually far easier than anticipated, but once again, you'll have to effectively grind up a whole new team and have the entire battle planned out just to do this. Obviously the Perma Sun in the gym is a massive problem, but I've got some good mons to sort of counter her. So the lead is Camerupt, which is easily able to destroy her lead Pokemon Ninetales. Now here is where I really start brain maxing. I know that the following Typhlosion can finish off Camerupt with Earthquake, but very little can actually counter it with the Sun Up, so here's what you do. Predict the Earthquake by switching into Gyarados. Then use Earthquake to counter it, and then predict the Thunder Punch by switching back to camera up, but since I got a free Intimidate off, I am now able to take an Earthquake and destroy it. Now that is a strategy. Great start. I've already taken out 2 of her Pokemon without any casualties. Charizard is able to be walled out. Gyarados can counter it somewhat, but there are most likely better options. I forgot that Blaziken can still use Sky Uppercut, which is a bit unfortunate. But that's fine as Altaria is able to outspeed that and 2-shot it, leaving 2 more Pokemon against my remaining 5. Castform is a threat due to its coverage and massive stat buffs, but one-on-one, Thick Fat Hariyama can take it down, leaving only her Arcanine. Huh, that was lucky. So the hardest gym leader so far has been taken down, and this was way smoother than anticipated. My last 2 Pokemon weren't even needed for this battle. Time to move on. Next up is Norman, and this is potentially the easiest gym leader and the hardest one at the same time. It completely depends on your strategy and how prepared you are. Eventually, after many failures, I came up with a strategy to really abuse the lack of good AI and invalidate his team. This is very effective and very easy to pull off. This strategy is very nice. Norman slacking is key to the exploit. The important thing to do is that first you have to destroy the Espeon before it can use skill swap on slacking. That is very important. This will also remove Norman's only special attacker, which is crucial. Also, it will ensure that slacking can only attack once every 2 turns, which in a double battle is a lot more detrimental than a single battle. So you can easily use Fake Out and X-Scissor to just double team the Espeon and destroy it. Now what to do now is to double switch into your Intimidate users to weaken both opponents sharply. Not only is slacking way weakened with Truant, but the double Intimidate will leave it almost crippled, which matters even more so in double battles. Also, Hariyama is always available to switch back in later with Fake Out if needed. The best thing is that Swellow tries to use Steel Wing, but hits Gyarados instead, which does absolutely nothing. Steelix is also great in this battle, as its defense is so stupidly high that with Intimidate, not even super effective moves will be hurting it much, since the rest of Norman's team is all physical. The game plan is to just spam Intimidate, then focus fire on the left side of Norman's team. The more Intimidate users you switch in, the more useless slacking will become, making it boil down to pretty much a 2-on-1. Hell, slacking even got lucky and got a critical hit on Gyarados, negating the attack nerfs, but it didn't even make that much of a difference in the long run. Once you get going, you can easily just focus fire and destroy Norman's team one by one. I only had 2 KOs on my own team. Don't be fooled though, if you don't have a good plan, this battle will be very hard to beat. Now, with that done, before I proceed to Winona, it's time to get some new Pokemon on the squad. I spend a while but eventually find the ultimate Beldum. Seriously, this one has incredible IVs and natures. You need this. I'll skip over May as she's rather easy, she only has 5 Pokemon. Metagross easily destroys Sceptile and Swampert can abuse the Swift Swim boost. You won't need my help for this, but you might for the next gym leader. Winona is the only gym leader where I really didn't have a good strategy as her team is very offensive and powerful. It's a double battle with great coverage, so my Intimidate strategy won't work since most of her teams are special attackers. Her Pokemon can usually take super effective hits and the strategy of focusing fire on one of her Pokemon at a time isn't that good as her team is very fast. I brought Kangaskhan as this has max speed and it can use Fake Out, while Armaldo can hit hard and has Ancient Power which got buffed. Hopefully you can even get that godly power up. I didn't have a solid plan for this, but I managed to get a good win as Kangaskhan can actually outspeed a lot of her Pokemon. With these two, Aerodactyl isn't even that scary, and Kangaskhan can just outspeed Zapdos and beat it before it gets to attack again. Same with Flygon, as Solrock can just take a hit from it and hit back with a strong Ancient Power and oh baby! Honestly, I will say the Ancient Power boost is decently likely as you will be using it about 4 or 5 times minimum, so getting that 10% chance boost isn't even that hard to do. But once you do get that Ancient Power boost, Solrock can just simply sweep, especially as the last few Pokemon on our team are 4 times weak to Rock. I will say that this battle will be a lot more hectic, so you might have to get creative for this one and it might take you a few tries before you get the optimal strategy down. With this, we are now going into the late game with many more challenges to come. Maxie rematch is no joke at all. Once again, I'll need to get a whole new team just to beat him. I'll need more power to match him. The third thing I do is vital to the whole run. I catch another Growlithe that's much higher level. It's already level 49, so I won't have to regrind it. I catch 20, then I select the best one. This one has a modest nature. To really abuse Arcanine, it needs to evolve at level 51, once it learns Morning Sun. This is done to abuse Intimidate loops with Gyarados, which you will see, especially at the Elite Four. The other attacking moves are Fire, Dark and Electric coverage, all special. Overall, Arcanine is amazing, and is very important to this run, with the sole exception of the Seafloor Cavern in the final gym because of the Permarine. Overall, I definitely recommend you get an Arcanine for your team. The next most important Pokemon is to get that max attack Metagross. This is vital. It's incredible and extremely good. Meteor Mash got a buff, so it's basically just Earthquake for steel types. Not to mention its great bulk. This will be a staple on the team until the very end. There are two other staple Pokemon that are worth getting, as once you finally do get them with amazing IVs, you're pretty much set with them for the rest of the game. But one of the most important Pokemon, arguably the single most broken Pokemon in this whole game excluding the post game, is Snorlax. Holy moly, this thing is absolutely ludicrous. Just wait till you see how it tears up the Elite Four. Though Snorlax is very hard to catch, it's definitely worth it. You can find it in the Safari Zone, but catching it is very time consuming. It's got a 1% encounter rate and a very low catch rate and can easily just flee from you. After like 90 minutes, I barely caught two, and annoyingly, they weren't the best ones. One of them is pretty decent though, with the IVs. The main thing is that Snorlax will be a purely special wall. That's what matters most. If you catch a female, then consider yourself very lucky. Absolutely breed it like crazy, until you just get the best one possible. So now that I'm assembling a new team, I destroy Mate for the last time. At this point, I think, rather than having to build a new team for every single boss battle, now that I'm getting some universally very overpowered Pokemon that are super strong, it's better to just build one god team that can handle every scenario, then just make small changes here or there as they're needed. With this, I go to challenge Maxie with my new team, and he is not to be taken lightly. I could have abused my own Chlorophyll user to take advantage of the Permasun, but this ends up being unnecessary. The best way I found to beat him was to use my Metagross at the start of the battle. This is vital. There is a strategy to make this battle a lot more easy. Metagross is immune to Tyranitar's Intimidate and can outspeed it and usually will one-shot it. This is where the IVs and natures are crucial. I believe it is possible to get the Metacoat to boost his attack, but I didn't even need it. So Metagross, lead off, destroy the Tyranitar. Next up is Gengar, and I can just take a hit and retaliate. You'll usually one-shot it, most of the time. If you get burned or unlucky, this will backfire. But Metagross can easily just take out Maxie's first two Pokemon. Next one is Flygon, and while this is tricky, I've got a plan for this. I send in Gyarados, and while I get unlucky and I get critical hit, it's actually fine, as this allows Arcanine to come in to revenge KO it. But for some reason after this, when Arcanine takes out Flygon, Maxie will always send out Executor for some reason, which is basically just a free KO for your Arcanine, leaving Maxie with only 2 Fire-type Pokemon on his team to deal with, and that's pretty much it. You've already taken out 4 of his team and you've only lost 1 Pokemon. Just gank them and be done with it. I never realised that Snorlax in this game actually has the Guts ability, so I thought to abuse this by burning it beforehand, but I completely forgot that I could have actually taught it Facade this whole time, as that would have really abused the Guts. That would have been incredibly strong, but I didn't even need that. I still tore up without it, but that would have been really powerful. Definitely do that if your Snorlax has the Guts ability. Tauros is actually really solid, as it outspeeds almost everything with a jolly nature and has great coverage moves like Earth Power. Now before the 7th gym, now that I've destroyed Maxie, there are 3 extremely useful Pokemon that you need to catch. Those being Lantern for the anti-water strategies at the 8th gym and the Seafloor Cavern. I caught this one, it's got perfect IVs, which is really incredible, so good to use. The next Pokemon is Wailmer, And good god, wait till you see Wailord's buffs, its stats are insane, it's basically legendary tier. Though I eventually catch a female, and I just breed it over and over again to get the optimal one. Definitely worth it for the endgame. Though I won't be using Wailord quite yet. The last Pokemon that I do catch and I do add to the team though is Lapras. I never realised that for some reason Lapras cannot use electric types moves in this game, which really sucks. But it's still really good regardless because of its dual stab, and its slight stat buffs makes it a great Pokemon anyway. I catch a female after hours of trying. It's got Roar and an incredibly low catch rate. You need patience for this. So after hours of catching, grinding and breeding, I can finally get back on track and destroy the 7 gym leaders with the new additions to my team. Tate and Liza's lead Lati twins are very tough to handle, so Lapras and Kangaskhan are good leads to take them on, due to Fake Out and strong ice moves. Fake Out and Blizzard are good, though the latter can get unlucky and miss. Kanga is also just fast enough to outspeed and stop the Latios before it can hit you, giving you a big advantage. Gyarados can easily counter Medicham, while Kangaskhan can outspeed and 2-shot Gardevoir. Then the battle simply ended with an easy win as Kangaskhan 2-shot to Stormy, while Arcanine simply counters Jirachi straight out. Very smooth victory. With this team you shouldn't have that much problem, once you know when to use your Pokemon at the right time. Now for the final Maxie battle, I'll say that this strategy is going to be up to you, as it's very hard to prepare for this. It's far more RNG reliant than other boss battles and will vary wildly, simply because you're battling with Steven, who is an AI trainer and he can act in ways that are really suboptimal and irrational. So I'll say this one's up to you. It's usually better to just focus on beating one trainer first, then beat the other one next. But I'll leave that to you. I did lose quite a few times to them though. So after that, it's time to clean up Team Aqua, and here a few changes to the team will be necessary. For this area and the last gym as well, as Permarain will be used against us. Arcanine won't be needed. Lantern and Swampert will be very important due to Electric Stab and Swift Swim boosting. Another great Pokemon to get specifically for this area that I would recommend is Ludicolo, as it can outspeed with Swift Swim and counter water types. Though I did mess up. I gave it Bullet Seed instead of Magical Leaf, not knowing that Bullet Seed in this game is capped so it can only hit twice, effectively being a 50 base power move. Also, this Ludicolo's special attack IVs weren't that bad and had a neutral nature. Make sure that you get Ludicolo with Miracle Seed, Modest Nature, Magical Leaf and ideally good IVs. The fact that Archie is now a double battle though, makes this a lot more RNG dependent, so there's not so much of a strategy. But if you have these viable Pokemon like Ludicolo, Swampert and Lantern, you'll have a big advantage over his team. Swampert and Ludicolo are great leads to counter Raikou and Suicune, especially as Ludicolo has Fake Out to prevent the Raikou from using Hidden Power Grass, and it can also tank Swampert's own Earthquake. This is also really good for taking out his Metagross, as Swampert can just flex on it. Lantern and Snorlax can easily just clean up the rest of the team. Lantern can stop whatever water types are out, where Snorlax can just swallow the special attackers and hit back really hard, giving you a decently easy win. The end is near, with only one more gym battle to go, or two I guess. I keep my team as it also counters this gym as well because it also has Permarain. So after that I go and I take on the single battle gym leader first. Lapras is a good lead to stop with Kingdra, purely because its special attack and defense got slightly buffed and you can just Ice Beam it. Lapras is very strong. Cast form however is a big problem, as it's got really good coverage and Hidden Power Grass I believe, so I've got no choice but to sacrifice Lapras. And not even Snorlax was able to beat it one on one. That is annoying, but at least Ludicolo is a great revenge killer here. Lapras on his team is not a problem as Lantern can outright counter it. Then Gyarados can easily counter the Ludicolo on his team. Then my own Ludicolo simply counters the Swampert. I 2-shot it with Bullet Seed, but with Miracle Seed, good IVs and Nature's and Magical Leaf, you can easily 1-shot it, making it even easier. After that he'll only have Melodic left, so the rest of your team could just gang up on it, destroy it for an easy win. Now after that, the final double battle gym leader. Well, I couldn't really find a great strategy to abuse it again, because it's just a very hectic double battle. His team is practically hyper offense. With his team you'll have a decent time winning, just from brute forcing it, but I couldn't find the cheese strategies. There might be a way or two, but oh well. Anyways, with that done, it's time to finally make it to victory road and to finish this game. There's a lot of preparation to do, but for the final battle I'll need the best team I can possibly get. So what I do is I go to this area, which is only available after you get Waterfall, which is under Mount Pyre, where I can actually encounter wild Snorlaxes at level 74 with 2% encounter rate. Hey, that's pretty good. But the stupid thing is that it always uses Whirlwind, so good luck in catching it. You will need it. Catching this was so not fun. It was so tedious and frustrating and long. Hell, the Safari Zone Snorlax is arguably easier to catch, even though that's harder to encounter. I cannot express how unfun this was to do, but then something amazing happened. I finally found and caught a female Snorlax. Yes! This is exactly what I needed. With this, there's no more need to waste hours of grinding just to encounter and catch the optimal Snorlax. I can just breed as many as I need to, so much quicker than before. And that's exactly what I did. I bred so many powerful Snorlaxes and narrowed them down, several of which were all amazing. They had adamant natures, careful, brave, sassy, with both guts and thick fat abilities. What I'll do is I'll clear out the victory road first with the Snorlax I already have grinded up in my team, then I'll select the best one that I bred to replace it afterwards. Oh yeah, Arcanine can now return to the team as I've no longer got to deal with Permarain. And then what I do is I add the next overpowered Pokemon to my team, replacing my Kangaskhan, Dusclops. This thing is brilliant in Emerald Kaizo, with a massive buff to its attack and HP stat, making it legendary tier. Also, it gets access to moves like Shadow Sneak, which will be super important at the Elite Four. Get Dusclops, it's amazing, and it's also rather easy to catch. With this, I've got 5 out of my final 6 Pokemon for the team. I'll keep Lapras for now, but once I get to the Pokemon League, I'll replace it with the final piece of the puzzle. Regardless, the team is almost ready, is very powerful, and it's really showing. It's putting in so much more work than before. Hell, I'll go as far as to say that with this team, with these powerhouses in the squad, I don't even need to give you a plan for Victory Road. Strategy isn't even that required, because despite being severely underleveled, I'm beating even the boss battles like Trainer Wally in Red. As you can see here, against Red, Dusclops gets the clutch Shadow Sneak on the Mew. Oh baby. Hell, I even beat the final boss of Victory Road, Windstreak Vito, with a huge level advantage. That just goes to show how crazy this team is. Arcanine, Metagross and Snorlax are broken, but now I've made it. I'm at the Pokemon League and the final battle awaits me, and I've got only a few more preparations to do before I'm ready. I need to make sure that I've got the perfect team to destroy this game, so what I do is I replace my current Snorlax, the one that I caught a while ago, with the best one that I bred with the optimal stats. This one had thick fat ability which worked out fine here. Arguably in the Elite Four, Guts won't be as useful. Then finally, I replaced Lapras with Wailord, and good god, this thing is so much more powerful than I originally thought. Make sure that it learns Water Spout at level 100 as a Wailmer. This thing is monstrous. With that, it's now ready. One of the most optimal teams you could possibly build for the Pokemon League. If you build this team with the right moves, the right natures and IVs, you can easily destroy even the champion without breaking a sweat. You'll see very soon what I'm talking about. There might be a slightly better team that you could build, but this worked out very well for the most part and you'll be cheesing regardless. Now that you've got your own powerhouses and legendary tier Pokemon, without further ado, the last and most important part of the video, this is how you flex in Elite 4. So first up is Sydney, and he leads off with a very powerful Sableye with massive stat buffs. It's a big threat, but I've got a way to easily meme on it. Switch back and forth between my lead Arcanine and Gyarados to spam Intimidate. Then when Sableye is weak enough, have Arcanine use Morning Sun to heal up, then just roast it. As its attack stat will be really low. The rest of the battle is so easy as you can just counter Sydney's whole team. Dusclops can switch in and destroy Alakazam, but I did misplay against the Jolteon as it turned out that my careful nature special defense Snorlax could have easily just walled it out as it's got Slack off an Earthquake, so I needlessly sacked my Dusclops, which wasn't even necessary. Despite that, this battle was a cakewalk. Snorlax destroys Jolteon. It's so bulky in the special defense, Jesus Christ. Gyarados can then switch in and one-shot the Machamp, just straight up counter it. Then Wailord can straight up counter Houndoom. With that, I flex on Sydney. I've only lost one Pokemon, but that was easily avoidable. And guess what? This was only my second try. That's just how strong this team is. I didn't even need a game plan, I didn't even need trial and error. I just did it on my second attempt really easily. I can simply just brute force at this point. The one casualty wasn't even necessary anyways. Great start. Despite that, Phoebe is definitely harder as she abuses RNG a lot, so even the strongest teams can simply get unlucky and lose to her. I lost to her once, but second try, I found a way to win easily enough. I misplayed against the opening Gengar. Using Dusclops as Shadow Sneak would have been better as I could have actually avoided the Destiny Bond, but oh well. Both Dusclops are out and this is where the RNG begins. You only need 2 Shadow Balls to KO it, so odds are you'll be able to KO it without any trouble. But I did realise that after this battle that Dusclops can actually learn Shadow Punch, so you can always hit it despite it setting up with Double Team. So that's a great trick that I recommend you can use. You can just flex in a Double Team with Shadow Punch, which is pretty cool. The next Sableye though is the biggest threat in the team, because that's got Double Team but it's not weak to Ghost types. Do not let your guard down against this and don't let it set up. I sack my Dusclops just so my Wailord can safely come in and 2-shot the Sableye with Water Spout, which has a base power of 150 all the time now. Wow! Statistically speaking, Wailord will actually beat Sableye more often than not one-on-one even after it uses Double Team, as its evasion won't get that high before you'll destroy it. After the Sableye's down, the rest of her team is much easier. Snorlax simply walls the hell out of Gardevoir, and since Gardevoir already paralysed it, Crobat can't even put it to sleep, so you destroy that as well. Then simply gang up in the final Ludicolo. Easy win. Gyarados can just devour Ludicolo as it can't hurt it very much. While this battle can be dicey, I got by pretty well once you figure out how to counter the RNG, though there will be some luck involved either way. However, this is the only hard battle in Elite 4 right here. By far it's the hardest one. Yes, Glacia is the real MVP, as her Rain Hyper Offense team is very hard to counter effectively, but on my first try I found a way to beat her. Glalie, her lead Pokemon, is scary but Metagross can destroy it as it's immune to its Intimidate, which it now gets in this game. This time I got very lucky, and because I got the attack boost on Meteor Mash, which I think is 20%, so it's not that unlikely, I was able to also take a hit from the Dugong despite being rain boosted and one-shot that with Meteor Mash as well. Despite that, being able to one-shot it wouldn't have actually mattered that much as my next Pokemon would have just revenge KO'd it pretty easily anyway. Snorlax is actually capable of walling Dugong, so that's really good. The result would have been similar. Now the following Swampert is tough to handle due to it having Swift Swim. Gyarados can sort of wall it, but the fact that Snorlax has Yawn is not good. You could counter this by bringing a Chesto Berry, but I didn't do this. But no. Now the luck has completely gone against me. The Swampert got the Ancient Power Boost. I seriously thought I was going to lose here. Good lord. Gyarados is definitely clapped. But luckily Wailord was able to come in and use the rain boost to two-shot the Swampert despite it being boosted, and barely survive it as it's got a bold nature boosting its defense. Phew, that was a crisis averted, but things are now looking rough for me. We're actually about even now. Dusclops can just take out the Wailord, as Snorlax is able to wall out the Lapras because its special defense is so high. The IVs are vital for this. The Lapras will miss Hydro Pump eventually, so just be patient and keep using Slack Off until it does, then destroy it. This leaves the final Regice to deal with, and while this was really close, it was 2-on-1 at the end. This was by far the hardest battle in Elite Four, with a lot of luck involved, and probably one of the hardest boss battles in the game overall. I would say is probably the hardest one. But with this done, believe it or not, it's completely just easy sailing from here on. Yes, well, Drake looks insanely hard, he's really not that hard to beat. Dusclops can easily counter the lead Latios because it's got a priority ghost attack move. 1 down. Metagross can easily switch and counter the Tyranitar as Ancient Power will barely damage it at all. You can easily just outspeed it like before, then use Meteor Mash, destroy it in one hit, and luckily I got the attack boost. This allows me to take a hit from Salamence and one-shot that also. 3 Pokemon down already. The attack boost wouldn't have made that much of a difference, as even though your Metagross would have been destroyed by the Salamence, you'll still deal a lot of damage, so your Gyarados could have easily just revenge KO'd it anyways. Next up is Dragonite, and Wailord can stop the Dragonite with ice moves, despite it having Thick Fat. Yeah, Ice Beam is definitely better than Blizzard, as it would have two-shotted it regardless and you wouldn't need to worry about missing. And for good measure, I made sure that my Wailord has self-destruct, so Wailord can KO 2 Pokemon for the price of 1. Oh baby, now I can use self-destruct in my advantage. The Wailord even had an attack lowering nature, it just goes to show how strong it is. Then, he only has 1 Pokemon left, and I've only lost 1. Snorlax can simply wall out the Latias and win. Who cares about Soldew? Wow, that was way easier than expected, surprisingly. But with that, there is one last battle to do before the game is truly over. The champion, as you know, he's packing heat, but I ain't scared. You'd think he would be the hardest boss so far, because just look at his team. But what if I told you he would be by far the easiest Elite Four member to counter and completely cheese on? You're probably confused, as it sounds pretty ridiculous, but I'll show you. Cue the final battle montage. Oh my god. What was that? That was the final boss? It was so anticlimactic, but also so rewarding. I've got the god team, and I countered him outright. Dusclops especially memed on him. That was a crazy way to end the guide, showcasing just how powerful this team is when it's working together effectively and no cheap RNG is involved. If you get this team, you won't be going wrong with it. This is how you cheese Emerald Kaizo. So this concludes the guide. I've shown you how to destroy almost all of the main boss battles in this game, what Pokemon to use and how to use them. The best thing is that this guide, I didn't have to rely on luck to beat the boss battles easily. Sure, I did get an occasional crit, but most times when I do that I would purposefully reset so that I can beat the battle fair and square. This isn't necessary, you don't need to get lucky. With a good team and a good strategy, you can win without that. This is to show that anyone with these strategies can flex in the game. You too can use this guide to help you, or even if you're nuzlocking, some of the strategies I used could still help you in one way or another. The most important thing I would say at the end of the day is that your Pokemon need to have the optimal stats. Otherwise, many of the strategies that I used and abused will not work for you. Well, it's possible to destroy this game. Good God, will you have to work at it. And yes, there most likely are slightly more optimal strategies that could have been used. I did all this trial and error, so you wouldn't have to. This concludes the video. Join me next time for another guide of sorts. It will be back to Pokemon Radical Red. Then after that, it will finally be time for...
Wrong.
That is
Meme style.
heck.
Well,